states. All right, we got. So you can see how people were thinking that this Charizard may be a weather ball with the drizzle. I mean, what else would the drizzle be
Yeah,
supporting here?
especially since you're running it with Charizard, like it's a little confusing, right? If he was, I actually don't think that's that bad. I actually like Guzman's team a lot better in terms of like because it looks like it has a lot of bulk and a lot of flexibility here, right? And I think like that ChefRich lacks that a little bit because like his team kind of is very reliant on like either very early aggro offense with the Charizard or
Right.
the other thing is like he wants to get Trick Room up, right? Which both things Lapras are pretty good versus, so it's gonna be interesting to see how he kind of addresses that going into this game. But they are 1-1, so I'm sure that ChefRich has some kind of plan with that. Kind of interesting because these are both teams that kind of want to max earlier. So interesting to see how they address that. So Lapras kills. So I actually do like this lead from the side of Guzman because what he can even do here if he really wants to, like since the Torkoal's being led, what Guzman can do is he can swap into Tyranitar here, remove the weather from the Mons. So
He's
very
a
interesting.
Yeah, Guzman's a really good switcher, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's something he did.
Absolutely, and I think
There it
this is
is.
smart, right? Yeah, there you go. Yep,
Good
and he gets
call, Joe.
Tyranitar, which is really good. Yeah, no, it's like I think it's just his objectively correct play.
It just makes
You're
sense.
using Yeah, right, because you're removing the sun, so Charizard does a lot less damage, especially if it maxes turn 1 like it wants to. It is smart with drawing the Torkoal here and bringing the P2, as it's a pretty good pivot for anything to absorb damage. And what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to swap back in the sun, so in a way, this is beneficial for Guzman immediately in this turn, because he'll definitely be able to get his screens up safely. But going into the turn after, he's going to have to be aware of the Torkoal swap back in and giving him total power, right? So, it's definitely something to take note of, I think. You have any thoughts on like the turn so far? Like, what you think you should?
No, I just thought it was cool how you said that Chef Rich knew kind of he was going to switch, and he switched out his Torkoal, preparing it for as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like fine because it's a play you definitely have to respect, right? Like you have to make sure that you're, you really have to make sure that you have weather control in this situation, especially with Zard, who's so dependent on the Torkoal to get a lot of damage out of it. And I think this is like the perfect situation to where like you don't want to need to where you don't want to like bring Politoed because obviously you're going to be supporting the Ferrothorn. You're going to be helping. You're going to be helping basically the entire opposing team. Said they made the game too loud.
I'm going to have to go in my game settings and turn it down. Then let me do that after this game.
I don't even think because you can turn down the Elgato settings, which fixes the game. But yeah, like looking at this, like I actually feel like in terms of like options, I think that right now, so ChefRich did take a lot of damage on his Zard with the G-Max Resonance, so the swap back into Togekiss here rather, is going to be pretty useful because he's going to keep sand control basically, and like as we saw, like he's going to bring back in, oh he brings in Toad. He was actually trying to, I think he's trying to snipe the Tyranitar with a water move here. So this is actually a very smart swap on Guzman's part, and I think actually if Guzman went for the Hydro, or like the Max Geyser into the Zard, he's going to be in a super good spot. Yeah, I think this is like really bad for ChefRich actually. And this is what I meant about bringing the Toad. Like, I don't think you want to bring the Toad to this matchup, and it was like a little greedy for him to try and get the kill on the Tyranitar like that, in my opinion. Because like there's no way, like knowing that you have that option of going for a Max Geyser, right, with the Politoed, like there's no way you're going to leave you're gonna leave your Tyranitar open for that, right? There are too many ways that plays could go wrong, that play can go wrong. So I wouldn't have taken that same risk. I think like had he mitigated his kind of risk a little bit, and had he gone for like a G-Max Wildfire even on the Lapras, like sure, like when you bring in Torkoal, like you're gonna be doing a lot of damage, but like obviously it'll be reduced because of Auroraville. Actually, look at the Lapras's health. It may have been able to just like bring it into Wildfire range. So I think it was definitely a misplay to not like that, but I can kind of he was valuing a very obvious option to try and get a kill, right? But like it didn't pay off.
Here comes a pair
Oh, we
song.
see. I actually don't think this is Chef's play because Geyser comes out. This won't kill because Lapras sucks. Yeah, but I think here like isn't really benefiting ChefRich because the trick room is right, but the Perish song actually doesn't help that much because Guzman already wants to swap anyways, right? So like he doesn't need to swap immediately. He can even let kind of these mons go down as long as he isolates ChefRich's end of the board, right? Because as soon as that Torkoal's caught in versus the Tyranitar, unless he has a good way to remove the Tyranitar, such as like body press, I think it's gonna be really difficult to deal with it. Do you have any thoughts on like the board so far, Joel? Or...
Not thoughts right now.
Yeah, because like looking at this thing, there's like a lot of potential plays, right? Like you want to see the recover coming out from the P2 here, and the reason why you want to see the recover coming out from the P2 here is obviously he wants to keep it around longer, but he's put himself in a bit of an awkward spot with Perish Song in terms of keeping both of his mons around. And he does have Dusclops in the back, so that is very good information for it's very good information for Rich to know. It is interesting to see him keep both of them in. So, Charisma, he can still swap. So he's taking the freeze right here. What I would have liked to see from ChefRich here is maybe a swap out from the Politoed to the Torkoal. I think that would have been a bit of a better play.
Maybe he was
If
even
he gets
expecting a
burn here,
switch
it could be
too
useful.
with that pair song.
Yeah, it's just like because removing the Perish is like really important. I mean, the Lapras is taking so much damage that like obviously it's hurting it, but like it's definitely still not ideal. And I think like he has one more turn to Gmax Wildfire, so like the Lapras is kind of in a point where like it doesn't really need to be alive anyways. What I would do here if I were Rich, honestly, I would probably go for a recover here and just swap into my Coal. The reason why is like you want to remove the rain and you want to allow your P2 to get your health back, and then you could swap in the Politoed at some point for the P2 to save it from dying, right? Which is important. So I'm interested to see what they do. Obviously, the negative side is what you're doing is you're adding rain for your Torkoal, but that's why I don't really understand the Perish play. But it is down a lot of Mons, so I will be So he does bring in a Torkoal like we expected. So he wants to preserve the P2 here the most. The reason why is because P2 can actually endgame a lot of these Mons pretty comfortably if he's able to get some recovers off. And the Politoed is probably the like. Actually, I guess if you remove Lapras, it's kind of useful, but like for the most part, like you don't really want to the Politoed out.
Gosh, but Porygon 2 is such a beast, man. He reversed the Trick Room.
Yeah, so the Trick Room was a reverse here. I actually don't think this is this bad for ChefRich because he didn't get a free swap into anything he wanted to. So for example, had he killed the Togekiss here, he would have gotten a free swap into Tyranitar, which would have been really threatening for Rich. But now Rich can kind of just swap the Politoed pretty safely in the P2 slot. Go for an Eruption or I think a Heat Wave's a little bit safer into both slots. Get some chip off, right? And like if he swaps in Tyranitar, he'll be taking it with like non-rain damage, so it'll do a little bit more.
Do some good chunk.
I think like because the thing is Gmax Wildfire has chipped down Guzman's Pokemon so much that like ChefRich still has a way to kind of like play out of this. I just think the Paris song from him was unnecessary earlier because it kind of made him have to play like this, but aside from that, I think like he's been playing it fine in terms of like keeping what he needs to alive.
It's interesting bringing in the Drizzle to kind of negate what his Torkoal's doing.
Oh, exactly. I don't think he wants to, and this is why I really don't like the idea of Politoed plus Torkoal, right? Sure, the Max Geyser is cute on the Zard, but like in a best of 3 situation, like your opponent's not going to be caught off guard by it.
I love it.
So he did actually. So one important thing to note is that Guzman actually made a read here and he doubled into the P2. It's actually a pretty good play on his end because like obviously he can't let the P2 die, so he knows that it's going to swap, so he can easily go for a Nightshade into that slot, even though it's a normal type, because he knows that like when the Politoed comes in, it's going to be like the Politoed is coming in, right? So it's gonna be able to be hit by it. I agree, Asthmatic. I think conflicting weather is a huge issue for the team to deal with, right? And the reason why is because, like, Politoed doesn't add much. Like, if anything, it hurts Charizard in terms of being defensive, right? Like, Sun at least helps Charizard take less damage from water moves, but, like, just not useful at all, I think, to have it so that Charizard is weaker to water moves. Like, a Politoed doesn't help it at all. think honestly, what would make this team even a little bit more decent is even something like a Venusaur on the team. I think over the Politoad could be really nice. So we see the Air Slash come out. It does connect on P2, so Politoad will get to stay around for another turn. If you went for a water move into the Lapras there, that could have been potentially bad, but that's not what ended up happening. I would have liked to see him. I don't know. What did he do this turn? The Toad. Did we see?
No, I didn't see.
Yeah, Politoad's pretty useless for this team, in my opinion. Like, I get the Max Geyser thing, but like, sure, it's a cute thing, right? But like, it doesn't actually help you that much.
It's very identifiable, and that's one thing I hate with some of the teams I play when the other team just totally knows what I have, and I'm trying to be sneaky, but they're like, no, I know exactly what you got, bro.
And you shouldn't rely on like stuff like stuff like that to beat people, right? Because like even though it may catch them off guard a little bit, like they can still beat you if your team isn't really optimally. So going for the Ice Beam here was something I found really interesting, right? Because you kind of do want to preserve your P2's life, but he does go for a Hydro Pump into the Politoad. So I'm assuming he was calling a Torkoal swap here. I would have liked to see a Trick Room home. Okay, the Trick Room did come out. My bad. I just saw wrong. So the Politoad went for an Ice Beam into the Kiss. Oh, that actually makes a lot more sense.
I thought that too. That's funny you said that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I thought the other guy did the Ice Beam too. It's funny you thought that same thing. We must have had a bad angle.
Yeah, I like here's the interesting thing, right? Because Trick Room's up, it actually does put Guzman in a better position weather-wise because the sand is going to be going up last because of the way speed tiers interact, right?
Oh man, that's a good point.
So the good thing is though is that if there is body press on this Torkoal, it's going to be able to kind of snipe away at the Tyranitar. And the only thing that they have to be aware of is the fact that Dusclops is in the back. So if he's expecting that, what he can always do is he can go for a protect on his Tyranitar, go into Dusclops, or swap his Dusclops in. So you see it protect. Recover. That's a pretty safe play.
Okay.
So, oh yeah, that is not what you want to see, especially if you're in ChefRich's position.
Back on him. Oh man.
Yeah, no, that's not good. Especially too because now with this, like he's on a timer, and as long as Guzman preserves his Tyranitar well, he should be fine. Because this turn, you can just double protect, right? You stall a turn of Perish, or 2 turns left. Next turn, you just swap the Tyranitar into the Dusclops here. And like obviously even if you kill the Dusclops, it doesn't matter because then you just protect the Tyranitar for your last turn and you win. So.
And he's triggering. He could even get in a pain split too, right?
Yeah, that's definitely not what. Yep, and he does exact. Oh, I think he swapped a turn too early. So you don't actually want to swap this early because now Eruptions actually might be able to. So you might actually be able to win. I know the Lapras protects, but this still isn't optimal. If he is able to get the it's burning jealousy. Okay, yeah. If it was an eruption coming out here, I think this would actually put ChefRich in a really good position. But he really needed to capitalize on the Clops coming in and like punishing that swap. I think that was a really risky play on Guzman's part, to be honest, because what you could have done there is if for example the Torkoal, let's say, went for an eruption, and it could end up putting the Tyranitar in peril because if there's still body press on it, right, then they try and protect and they don't get it because they need to get those they need basically a double protect.
And maybe that's why he switched out. Does he not have protect on He's got to have protect on his Tyranitar. That's interesting.
Nah, he has protect. He definitely has protect.
And there's the eruption.
Yeah, so he should have gone for an eruption last turn.
Oh.
And the thing is, like, even though he gets 2 kills here, like, Tyranitar just protects next turn and wins.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And maybe he was planning for that, man. I mean, that seems like Guzman's strat right there.
No. Because you think about it like this, right? So you know how Lapras protected, right?
Yeah.
Tyranitar protects as well. There's no drawback. The reason why there's no drawback is because you're stalling on a turn. You're not taking any damage. You're not putting your Dusclops in jeopardy. You swap in your Dusclops, you let both bonds go down. It's the same effect while you're inherently being safer and not risking your Clops going down earlier than you wanted to. You know what I mean?
Yep. And there's the protect.
That comes out. So this should be won by Guzman. I mean, I think very well played. He played to the Perishing game very well, like saving it. But yeah, this should just be a win for Guzman. One thing that could have actually been interesting to see had it come down to the situation. So, one interesting mechanic with Perish Song is it relates to speed, right? So the last Pokemon to die wins the game. If it was a situation where it was the Lapras with Perish Song and another Mon in front of both of Chef Rich's Mons, what could have been done there was actually trick him to reverse the Perish Song order so that he could win. But because obviously it was only 2 Mons left and there were multiple Mons left, Guzman had a very safe win con there.